And with that, I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back, Chair. Thanks, the Gentlelady, Chair. I'll recognize the gentleman from South Carolina.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Congressman Westerman. You know, this park was built in 1928, served a valuable use in World War II with the airplanes, with the Navy. When you do the math, you're talking about the national deficit. With the Park Service now, they're $11.1 billion in the red. And when you take New York City, the last time I heard the mayor, I think he was saying he's $50 billion short for his city because of migrants playing a big part of that, and the fact that they're a sanctuary city. They invited these migrants to come in. Who pays for the parks?
Well, obviously, the parks are part of the National Park Service, which is part of the federal government, so the American taxpayer funds the maintenance and upkeep of those parks.
So since 1928, the Americans have paid to bill for the parks, to keep them up, maintain them. And then
actually, since the 1800s on the national parks, but Floyd Bennett was moved to the Park Service, I believe, in the 70s. It was, as you mentioned, a naval station. I think Charles Lindbergh did flights out of there, but in the 70s, they put it as part of the Gateway National Recreation Area.
And you talking about you know, having immigration, trying to manage immigration. This president has welcomed everybody anywhere without any checks and balances coming in this country to the tune of 8 million people. How does the president have the authority to make a lease that the federal that the taxpayers are paying for, and the migrants that are using it have not paid into the system? They came here illegally. How is he legally doing this?
That is a great question. It's something I've been trying to get answered, and I think Ranking Member Grijalva actually answered this in what he was saying earlier. The law provides under an emergency situation to waive a lot of rules, to waive NEPA, to waive the Endangered Species Act under an emergency. Now, he used the example of what the Park Service and the Forest Service is doing in the sequoia groves in California. Now, that's different. That is an emergency because of fire. Fire caused the emergency. There was talk about Hurricane Sandy, how everything was waived and the park was used during Hurricane Sandy. And I believe the ranking member said that the Biden administration has used those emergency powers to waive the rules for Floyd Bennett Field. So it's what I've said all along, that Joe Biden has declared an emergency over his border policies and the failed immigration and security in our country. Now, the administration, I don't think will go public and recognize that, but when you look at their actions, that's what they did. They declared an emergency, waived the rules, used emergency provisions so they could fast track building these migrant shelters on Park Service land in the city of New York.
So how is it fair to stop the people that have paid their fair share, as the left likes to say, to support parks, allowing those who have not paid a dime into it to overtake it? And what's happening to the people that want to use it now? How is that fair to them, to Americans?
Well, they're mad. There's been lawsuits filed. Like I said, we had Democrat elected officials that came to the committee and testified for the bill. And, you know, there's bipartisan resentment to what's happening in their Park Service property that, again, was referred to by a colleague across the aisle as just an old airport in Brooklyn. Now, I wonder if the Park Service thought that when they took it in as a recreation unit. I've got a national park in my hometown, and I would hate for somebody inside or outside of my hometown to call it just an old piece of property that's not worth much, because apparently somebody thought it was worth making a unit of the National Park Service at some point.
We've got Carowinds on the border of North Carolina and South Carolina, and when you come in to use it, you pay a fee. What kind of fee are the migrants paying to use this national
Well,
park.
there's no fee. I mean, they're getting all these services for free. And like I mentioned, the first busload that came up looked it over and thought, I guess the Roosevelt Hotel provided much better accommodations than the free housing and shelter and health care and food and laundry service they were going to get at Floyd Bennett Field. So they got on the bus and left.
And the cleanup, of what you saw, they, got porta pots set up?
They didn't have anything set up when I was there. They were just in the process of awarding the contracts and starting to move in. And so they hadn't started any construction when I was there, but I have seen videos and images from the migrant shelters since they've been
So
constructed.
how's this not a sanitation issue?
Well, it's a fire hazard, and it is a sanitation issue, but they're using porta potties and those sort of things.
Which required, you got to service those. Who does the cleanup of all the trash? And
I think that's on the city of New York to take care of that. But we had an officer from the Park Service Police Union that came in and testified that they didn't have enough Park Service police officers to keep the place safe. So it's, I guess it's upon the city of New York to do security on the Park Service land, or they're just not going to have it.
And as you mentioned, the residents around it, not only they're being shut out from using it, they're going to be victims of crime. They're going to be victims of sanitation issues that you have. When you have a subdivision occupied by people, you have to put in certain things. This evidently doesn't have it. Does it have water lines to it?
I'm not sure about the water service, but I don't think it does have water lines. It is in a floodplain, though. It flooded just a week or so after we were up there. It's also got, there were signs out around where this shelter was going to be built about, I think it was native grasslands to stay off of it. You know, all of that just apparently through an emergency declaration by this administration got waved aside.
When it floods, sewage and whatever's on the ground floods into nearby neighborhoods.
Now, whatever's washing across the ground.
Well, I appreciate you bringing this up. This is a tragedy, really, New York City. A lot of it they invited among themselves by wanting a sanctuary city, but it's just adding to the national debt, and it's pretty much a crisis. This administration is inflicted on the American people. Thank you for bringing this up.